Hey guys, happy Tuesday. So we've been getting tons and tons and tons of questions talking about push-ups. So a lot of questions that pop up are, how do I get stronger at my push-ups? How can I get more than one push-up in? How do I get that full depth in my push-up? And how can I push up from the floor without sneaking up from the floor? So those are the things that we see in class as well. And those are the things we want to touch on today in today's video. The things I want to touch on today, I want to talk about hands, so hand placement, where we're putting our hands when we do our push-ups. I want to talk about what we're doing with our legs. Are we flexing our legs? Are we squeezing everything to make that push-up feel lighter and feel stronger? And then I'm going to touch a little bit on the best way for you to not only modify your push-up, but kind of track your progress as we get better at push-ups. So let's talk about hand placement first. So a couple of things we've been seeing in the gym in terms of hands and what they're looking like when we're setting up for push-ups. So we're seeing a lot of hands rotating in. We're also seeing a lot of hands rotating out. When you're getting set up for your push-up, you want to think about how are we getting set up for the strongest high plank. We do planks in here all the time. We do high planks, we do renegade rows, we do all sorts of things in that plank position. So when you're coming down to get set up for your push-up or that high plank, I want you to think about where you're distributing the weight in your hands. So instead of putting the weight on the inside in your fingers or putting the weight on the outside and kind of putting the weight on the inside of that wrist, I want you to open up your fingers and kind of distribute that pressure and that weight across the whole palm of your hand. So I'm coming down, I'm getting my hands set, I'm spreading out those fingers, covering up some space. The second thing I want you to take note of, when you look down at your hands, are they in line with your elbows, but also in line with your shoulders? So it should be one straight line from your shoulders right down to your hands. All right, so this is where you want your hands when you're getting set in a push-up. I'll show you from the side as well. Coming down, I'm gonna get my hands set. They're stacked right underneath my chest. So it's one straight line. It's that 90-degree angle from my wrist to my hips. All right, so again, I'm getting my hands set right under my chest. And then when I come up, you don't necessarily have to come up and keep your feet completely glued together. All right, when I do my push-ups, I like to take up some space. So I open up my feet. So I'm gonna get my hands set. Then I'm gonna open up my feet and get them relatively wide. All right, now I'm covering some ground. When you look at that side view of my plank, my hips are in line with my shoulders. So I'm not way back here putting pressure in the tops of my shoulders. I'm kind of distributing that weight from my shoulders down to my ankles. All right, the next thing you wanna do is flex. All right, so there's a difference between passive legs and active legs. I'm squeezing them as tight as I can. I'm gonna pull my abs in tight. This is a perfect high plank. This is a perfect start to your push-up. So now we're gonna talk about the actual push-up itself, the coming down towards the floor and driving yourself back up. So we talked about where our hands are. We talked about getting our legs set, getting them strong, getting them active so that everything's flexed, and we're gonna move that body down as one unit. So once your hands are set, that's exactly where you want them to be, but we also want to be mindful of what our elbows are doing when we're coming into our push-ups. A lot of times our hands look perfect, they're right where we want them to be, but when it's time for that push-up, they start to creep outwards. So they're coming out, we're rotating, we're curling up into our shoulders versus pulling down away from our ears. All right, so you're set with your hands. The next thing I want you to think about when it's time to come down is we want our elbows to stay super, super tight to our rib cage, all right? If you were thinking about someone coming towards you and you were pushing them away or pushing anything away from your body, you would push from your chest out versus from way out here, right? We also would push this way. You wanna keep those shoulders super relaxed. The second thing we're thinking about as we're lowering ourselves down is flexing from our shoulders to our toes. If I can distribute some of the pressure and tension throughout my body, I'm gonna feel lighter as I come down. I'm also gonna feel lighter when it's time to come up. So getting set up, hands are stacked, feet are nice and wide, I'm getting tight. So I'm gonna pull everything in tight. My abs are tight, my glutes are tight, my legs are tight. When I come down for my push-up, keeping my elbows in tight. Coming down, everything's tight here, coming back up. All right, I'm coming down, elbows stay tight, bring it up. I'm also gonna show you from the side as well. Hands first, then our feet. Tuck in those abs, tuck in those legs, flex them. Elbows stay tight to my rib cage. So you'll notice when I'm down here, my elbows, my biceps are in line with my side. So I'm coming down, they're in line, drive it right back up. All right, so those are the two things I want you to think about when you're doing push-ups at boot camp, when you're doing push-ups at home. Getting tight throughout your entire body, and keeping your elbows tight to your ribcage. So the last part we're gonna touch on is the actual pushing part. So pushing our body away from the floor. We talked about our hands, we talked about our legs, we talked about the elbows being in tight, about getting tight in our body when we're lowering ourselves down. Now we're gonna talk about what do I do when it's time to come back up? What can we do to avoid that snaking? What can we do to feel super strong as we're driving away? So I'm gonna get myself set up again. Remember, hands, feet and legs, get everything tight. I'm gonna lower myself down into that push-up. All right, so when I come down, elbows are in tight. When it's time to come up, I want you to flex as hard as you possibly can and blow the floor away. All right, don't forget to flex. A lot of times, that's the piece that we miss. We forget to get super, super tight, squeeze, 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 so that when we drive up, my whole body is tight and it's ready to explode. So again, from the side, hands set, feet wide, legs flexed. I'm gonna lower myself down, get tight, blow yourself away. So one way we can practice coming up from the floor is doing a hand release push-up. So you're gonna get set just like you would for a normal strict military push-up. The only difference is we're gonna add in a little bit of a pause at the bottom. You're gonna take some of the tension away and then build it back up again. So I'm getting set, I'm gonna lower myself all the way down to the floor. All right, I want you to take the pressure away. We don't have to reach all the way up. I just want you to lift your hands, release for a second. When it's time to come back up, it is super important we put everything right back where we took it from, right? So hands are gonna go right back where I need them to be. My elbows are gonna come tight to my rib cage. The first thing I'm gonna do is flex my legs. So you'll notice my legs went from passive and being relaxed on the floor to super active, so they're lifted. My glutes are tight, my legs are flexed. I'm gonna pull in my abs super, super tight. When it's time to come up, bring those elbows in, push my body away from the floor. All right, so the last tip that I have for you guys on getting better at push-ups, and this is my absolute favorite. This is how I got really, really good at push-ups. You can ask Rachel, this is how Rachel got good at push-ups. It's the best way to kind of modify a push-up, but also a great way to track and see, all right, I'm getting better and better as we lower down the height. So we're gonna use boxes. Boxes are great. We can stack a box, we can take pieces off. You can start as high as 32 up to 40 inches. We can lower our way down until we eventually make it down to the floor. So when you're using a box, everything applies, right? All the things we talked about. Hands, legs, abs, staying tight, elbows in. All of those things are important. The box is just elevating you, so it's taking away the distance you're traveling and taking away some of the pressure of that push-up. So you're gonna get your hands right on the edge. Make sure we're wrapping our hands around and not resting on top. So wrap those fingers around. This is the part that tends to trip people up a little bit, feet placement. All right, when you're doing your push-up elevated, you wanna make sure that you're still forcing your abs to work. All right, what happens is we don't get our feet far enough back and we're kind of in like a hip hinge position. So when it's time to push up, I'm pushing up with my chest and my face and not with my whole body. So I want you to think about walking your feet out behind you and tucking in your booty so you're at that angle from your shoulders to your toes. All right, once I'm tucked in tight, again, elbows are gonna drive back. I'm gonna keep them close to my rib cage. I'm gonna pull myself down. I want my chest to tap the box so I know I made it, and then drive back up. All right, if you find that your chest is not touching the box, we go a little bit higher. All right, the goal is to make contact to hit that full range of motion before we move down to a lower box. All right, so again, if we're going to a lower box, it looks exactly the same. Walk those feet back. Make sure we're at that angle. My chest is still stacked over my wrists. I'm gonna pull myself down, make contact with the box, and then drive myself away. All right, make sure you're breathing as well. In through your nose, as you come up, blow it all out your mouth. All right. So that's all I got on push-ups today. I hope you guys found it super, super helpful. I know it's one of the lengthier Trainer Tip Tuesdays that we've done over the past few weeks, but I know you guys have been asking and I finally wanted to get that out to you guys. But remember, practicing push-ups is the only way we get better at push-ups. You gotta do them. Practice them here when we're here at boot camp. You can sprinkle them into the circuit. Practicing at home is a great way to do it. A good challenge you can do for yourself to get better is try to get 100 push-ups in a day. And they don't have to be all at once. Maybe 10, we're doing 10 when we're waiting for our breakfast to cook. Maybe we do 10 before we get in the shower. Maybe we do 10 when we get here to boot camp and then 10 before we leave. As we go through the day, sprinkling in those 10 or 5 it's gonna add up. So by the end of the day, you'll hopefully work your way up to getting 100 push-ups in a day. A couple other things we can practice to get better at push-ups. Anything that's working your core. So hollow holds, planks. A great way to get better at push-ups, inverted rows. When you're here in class, you can do 10 of those before class starts. Just focusing on getting our elbows in tight and feeling what it feels like to flex our whole body and get those muscles working as one unit. All right, so keep those things in mind as you're going through push-ups in session. Keep them in mind when you're at home practicing, and I really hope that helped. I'll see you guys next week.